starting out, who in this room wears like a cross necklace or like a bracelet or has worn a cross necklace or something? Okay, sit. So a lot of us. Okay. So, starting out thinking about what I was going to talk about, this was a big thing for me. I didn't know if I was, qualified to speak. I met with Carson Ferd, who's our director, and I didn't know if I was, qualified to speak, if I was going to find something that was good. I didn't know being a freshman if it would be good for me to talk to people who are in the next stage of life that I'm about to go into. And so I didn't know what I was going to really talk about. And so one day at baseball practice, we were doing our stuff, whatever. I slide in second, and my cross necklace breaks, and it pops off. And I picked up the chain or whatever, and it was just kind of in the moment, so I just picked it up, put it in my back pocket, and kept going. Well, I just picked up the necklace, and the cross was still on the field. I found that out when I got in the locker room. So I was out in the field for like 20, 30 minutes looking for this cross. And it's like bright silver, but I could not find the thing. So, so I looked for it, and this was during the time when I was trying to figure out what to talk about. And so literally the next day, I go in, and I talk to Carson, and he's like, what do you think you want to talk about? And I was like, let's talk about the cross. It's just kind of like on my mind. And honestly, I never really dove into what actually happened on the cross. And I never really looked into like what the scriptures say, like how we actually got to the cross, what like the legal system at that time, how that happened, how we got there in the first place, what happened after. Like I really never dove into it. And so that was kind of, on my heart to dive into. So, starting out, we'll go ahead and dive right into it. So Jesus, I'm going to kind of tell the story of the cross. And I really hope that, like, my goal for this is that it wouldn't just be another broken record, Jesus died on the cross. Like, you've heard this a billion times. So have I. Like, let's be real. It's kind of boring. Don't really care that much. Okay. But I hope that you leave tonight and walk out of these doors with a different understanding of, like, okay, this was real. Like, this actually happened. It's not just a story. It's not just a cool part of this book. Like, it actually happened. And so I want to challenge you with that, just as you're listening tonight. So, diving in, Jesus is, before, he gets on the cross, he's taking his disciples and he's going to this garden to pray. And he knows what's about to happen. Like, he's Jesus, and he knows what's coming. And so he takes his disciples and he's going to pray in this garden. And he starts to sweat profusely. And it says in the Bible that he even starts to sweat drops of blood. And that, he's stressed to the point of death, and like he's mentally just at a high, like at a climax, just like totally stressed out. And when it says that Jesus is sweating drops of blood, there's actually a condition called, for the nursing majors in here, hematohydrosis, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And it's where you sweat so much and you're so stressed out that your sweat glands actually like interact with the blood vessels and you start to sweat blood. That only happens by being like top tier, like stressed out. So Jesus in the first place is just 10 out of 10 stressed out, worried, knows this is about to happen, and he's just mentally, physically already getting kind of like frail because of the blood, like stressed out. And so he's in the garden, and Roman soldiers come and arrest him in the garden, and they take him, and so he's arrested. Therefore, he's getting put on trial. He gets put on trial. He gets accused of being a blasphemy, a false prophecy, whatever, and he ends up getting accused of what he really didn't do, but he gets accused of, so he's going to get crucified. Now, crucifixion as a whole wasn't like, not just for Jesus, was invented in 300 BC, and is still to this day considered as one of the worst punishments that humans have ever invented. It's the absolute worst, most slowest, painful death that you can go. So Jesus gets accused, and the Roman soldiers, they take him out of this building that he got accused in, they throw him on the ground, and they're spitting on him, they're accusing him, and they're mocking him, and they're making fun of him. They have this whip in the Bible that talks about, it's called the cat of nine tails, and it has a leather strip on the end with metal balls that are intertwined into the strip. And it's got sheep bone on the end, so it's really sharp, like spikes almost. And they throw him down, and they're literally whipping Jesus. And they create streaks on his back, so he's bleeding on his back. They put a crown of thorns on his head, so he's bleeding from his head. He's already still stressed out, bleeding from the condition that I've talked about. So Jesus, this is before he even got to see the cross, and he's already in a horrible position. physically. He's hurting. So he gets whipped, and they put the crown of thorns on his head, and they put this robe on his back over where they had put the whip and the scars. And they let it dry, and they literally ripped the robe off to peel off the dried scab. And he's bleeding some more from that, so it's just more pain. And they bring this cross out, and in the Bible it talks about like specific terms and stuff, but I mean, it weighed around 300 pounds. And so Jesus, already in this spot, has to carry this 300-pound cross 2.5 miles to the so-called Calvary. So that he's going, and he finally gets up there, and they lay this cross down, and Jesus is at the point where he can't fight back. I mean, he is physically like done, like tired. So they lay this cross down, and they put Jesus on the cross, and they drive nails into his wrists. If they would have drove into his hands, his skin at this point is so frail that the nail would have just ripped through his hands. So they put the nail into his wrists on both sides, and they nail his feet and his ankles to the cross. And a lot of people think that Jesus on the cross, when he was hanging there, his feet were just kind of dangling. They weren't. They were put at 90 degrees, and it was because when they took the cross up and they put it in the ground, it would dislocate his shoulders. So Jesus is on the cross, and they nail his feet at 90 degrees, so through his ankle, and there's nerves and blood vessels that go, through these parts that they're nailing through. So Jesus' condition is already worse, and they haven't even put the cross up yet. So they take the cross and they stand it up, and Jesus is up there on this cross. As soon as they put it in the ground, he sits down, and his shoulders dislocate. His arms are, barely hanging on, probably just by the skin. So Jesus is hanging there, and his weight is supported by his feet, and he's up there, and the way he's hanging, it would have put so much pressure on his chest and his lungs that his diaphragm would have been closed and his lungs would have been collapsed. And so Jesus, to breathe, he has to pull himself up and breathe in. So he does that, and then he has to push up on his legs, which who knows how much he can really even feel. So he has to pull and push up on his legs to even get a breath in, and then he lets it back down just to exhale. So he does that to breathe. A human can hardly go 5 minutes scientifically without dying. 5 minutes without breathing will cause death. So Jesus, however frequently he has to do this, pulls up, breathes in, breathes out. And it talks a lot of times in the Bible that God actually spoke a lot on the cross. Talked. And, it's crazy because the one thing that the Bible emphasizes that he says is he's on the cross and he pulls himself up. And he says, God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing it. Just forgive them. Jesus being persecuted, spit on, made so much fun of. It says the King of Jews on the top of his cross. They put a board that said the King of Jews. And so it's literally just this show almost of Jesus getting killed. And he raises up, barely even being able to breathe, and he says, God, forgive him. Jesus, still on the cross, after some time passes, he dies. And a lot of people think it was because heart attack, because he literally couldn't pump enough blood to keep that going. And it's kind of weird talking about blood, I'm gonna be honest, because I get kind of queasy to the thought of medical stuff or blood. And it's like diving into this talk, I'm like, why am I talking about this when the one thing that I'm really messed up with is blood and needles and stuff? But so yeah, he's on the cross and he's bleeding so much, and he ends up dying of what people think is a heart attack. So Jesus, after all that happened, he dies. And so, I think back to my junior year of high school, and kind of taking out a sidetrack real quick. I go back to my junior year of high school, and I had transferred schools actually, and it was about 25-30 minutes down the road, this new school. And so the first semester I was there, we started doing 6 a.m. lifts. So I'd wake up at 5, I'd eat breakfast, I'd shower, and I would go lift, and it sucked. I hated it for the first 2 weeks. But I started getting into a habit of it, and I started to go to bed earlier, started to eat better, and actually take care of my nutrition, sleep, all that. And I started to enjoy waking up at 5 a.m. Not a morning person by any means, not even close. But I started to become a morning person because I love getting up and working out and seeing my best friends the first thing in the morning. My closest friends still today, we talk about some of the memories that we have from these workouts at 6 a.m. And it's like, as I'm thinking about this talk and what I'm going to talk about, it's like baseball is something that I've loved my entire life. I play baseball. I eat, sleep, and breathe it since I could breathe, literally. Like, that's all I want to do. And I'm willing to get up at 5 a.m. and be so excited to go lift. But there's some days where I'm not willing to get up an hour before class and ring my Bible. And I wear this. And it's like, it's weird because that priority is like, it's a weird dynamic. And so, you know, it's just, this whole story is all meant to give you a sight of Jesus and who he is and that he loves you so much. And you've heard that a million times. But here's the thing, that's crazy. If it was just another guy who died on the cross, it wouldn't matter. This story would go down in history. Nobody would ever hear about it. It wouldn't matter. But it's the fact that it's Jesus and what happened before the cross and what happened after the cross that he did. Because he loves you. I know it's cliche, but he did it because he loves you. And so, the reason I asked you a minute ago why you wear this and who wears this is because it's like, what happened on this? You wearing this, does this affect your life at all? Is this a reality? Or is this just like a symbol that you wear? It's something because your friends wear it. You saw a pro athlete wear it, so you're like, yeah, it looks cool. Do you live like this matters? Like, look, think about it in the aspect of, what if you treated your parents like this mattered? What would your relationship with your family look like? What if you treated your teammates and your coaches and your teachers like the cross mattered and it was real and it happened? What if you treated, for the underclassmen that are freshmen, sophomore, here in a few years, we're going to be juniors and seniors. And the freshmen coming in behind us, especially on sports teams, are going to look up to the culture that we make. What does that look like if we live by this? What kind of culture does that set for them to come into? What does this campus look like if we're living like this matter? And so, I'm about to pray for us real quick, and we'll go into some more worship. I hope it's as good as the first song, because that was lit. But, I want you to think about not just leaving this room the same exact way that you came in. I know, I've heard it a million times too. Jesus died on the cross, cool. But what happens if you live as if it mattered? What if this changed the way you treat people? And I want you to think about that as we go into worship and we do this. And I pray that you do leave this room a little bit changed, and it's different in your mind than just another broken record hearing Jesus died on the cross. So, I'm going to close and pray for us real quick, and then we'll get into some worship. God, I thank you for this night. I thank you so much for the people in this room. God, coming into this school and getting into a new crowd of people and a new place and a new atmosphere. God, I've seen you work with your hand on this campus so much. I've seen it weigh so heavy on the people that are here. And God, I just pray that you would continue to work in these people, that it wouldn't be just another story. God, that you would use this campus to uplift your name. Use the teams on this campus to uplift your name. God, thank you so much for the people's hearts that are in this room that wanted to come tonight in the first place. Whether they get anything from it or not, God, I just pray that you would work in the believers and the non-believers' hearts that may or may not be in this room, that you would just lead them, that you would guide them, that you would let them know that you are not just another book. You're not just another good story. That it's more than that. And God, I ask that you would continue to work in the parents and teachers and coaches that are over the school, and that you would bring your message to this campus through them. God, I thank you so much again for FCA and what you're doing on this campus, and for people that are making this happen. God, I just pray that you would continue to help this grow, and that you would make an impact so much more than just a couple people. And that you would start a revival on this campus, God. In your name I pray.